Yun na yung first part. So, you have revenue, gains, total, total income. So, ayan yung first part. Pangalawa, ito tayo kapag gumawa kayo, you leave a space and then expenses. Naman, ililist nyo naman lahat ng expenses ni company. So, kapag sinabi nating expenses, they are decreases in economic benefit during the period of the form of outflows or depletions of assets or increase of liabilities that result in decrease in equity. Other than those relating to distributions to the business owners. So, yan, ito yung expenses kapag sila yung binabayaran mo, necessary mong bayaran para patakbo mo si business ng tuloy-tuloy. Except, halimbawa, ito nga, other than those relating to distributions to the business owners, ito naman yung binabalik na natin sa capital. Okay? Hindi na expense ang tawag doon. Yun na yung, kumbaga, yun na yung benefit ng mga business owners. So, the difference between income and expense is represented by profit or loss. Siyempre, kapag mas malaki si income, ito mas malaki, kumpara kay expense, ang tawag natin profit. Pero kapag mas malaki si expense kay income, ang tawag natin loss. So, ayun na yung tatlo. So, you have total income, tapos may total expense. Siyempre, ililist mo dito, di ba, lahat ng income, si revenue, si gains, tapos total income. Tapos, ililist mo lahat ng expense, salaries expense, interest expense, utilities expense, miscellaneous expense, lahat ng expense, total expense. And then, you're going to subtract para makuha mo kung ano ang dapat mong itawag sa kanya. Kung siya ba ay profit, if it is positive, or loss, or loss kapag siya ay negative. Na, pag nagpa-present tayo, tandaan natin, kapag loss, we always use parentheses. So, let's have an example. So, the trial balance of ABC Corporation on December 31, 2017 shows the following information. We have service fees, interest income, and gains. Automatic, itong tatlong to, is part ng income. Bakit part ng income? Ano ba ang normal balance ng income? Ang normal balance ng income is credit. Next. Lahat. Ito yung first part. Meron ka ng first part. Second part, lahat ng expenses. Yan. Expenses. So, this is part of expenses. Yan. Ako ng expense. Sa expense, pag-subtract, and so on. So, let's continue. So, kapag gumawa na tayo, we have here service fees. So, pagdating sa income, ito yung first portion. You have service fees plus interest income plus gains. So, ang total income natin is 950,000 pesos. Second portion is lahat ng expenses. So, from salaries up to losses is expense. So, bakit kasama si losses? Kasi nawalan ka pa rin. It is still a loss in equity. Kasi di ba ang normal balance sa equity is credit. So, kapag nag-debit, automatic pag nakita mo yun ng debit, di ba? You're going to subtract it. So, makukuha mo na si total expense. The total expense mo is 493,000. So, yun yung second portion. Pero, reality, magkarugtong yan, yung income at expense. Meron lang silang one space na pagitan. So, third portion, you're going to subtract the income, the total income, minus total expense, wherein makikita mo si profit for the year, na third portion. Tapos, as I have mentioned earlier, wala muna tayong other comprehensive income. So, lagyan lang natin siya nito ng guhit na yan para kunyari, zero siya. So, makuha mo na ang comprehensive income for the year na 457,000. So makikita natin yung isang buong version nito dun sa module na isi-send ko sa inyo. Now, let's proceed with presentation of the expenses. So, yung income, as it is siya, okay, na revenue, gains, total income. Pero pagdating kay expense, meron tayong dalawang klase ng pagpapresent ng expense. Yung kanina, ang tawag doon ay single step approach kasi pinakita mo lang lahat ng expenses. Now, meron tayong tinatawag na different presentation of expenses. We have the nature of expense method, and then we have the function of expense method or cost sales method. So ito, ulitin ko, itong portion na to ay makikita lang natin sa part ni expense. Pero si part ni income, as it is tayo. So ngayon, kapag sinabi natin nature of expense method, it depends on the nature. Halimbawa, depreciation, purchase of material, transport costs, employees' benefits, and advertising cost. So, depends on nature and are not relocated among other functions within the entity. Nature of expense method then is a very simple because no reallocation of expenses are necessary. It is referred as a single-step approach. This method is commonly used in service business. Commonly used sa ginagamit ng service business kasi, di ba, kapag service business, wala siyang maraming pinaghihiwalay. Hindi pinaghihiwalay ang nasa factory at ang nasa office. So, kaya siya tinawag na nature of expense method kasi ito, halimbawa, depreciation. Di ba marami tayong klase ng depreciation? We have equipment accumulated or depreciation ng equipment, ng land. Kung magde-depreciate ng building, ng furnitures and fixtures, at ng kung ano-ano pa. So, instead of writing yung depreciation ng bawat isa na yan, ang sinusulat na lang natin is depreciation in general. So, pag sasama-samahin mo siya, lahat ng depreciation yan, ang tawag mo lang doon, depreciation expense. So, since iisa lang ang nature niya na nagde-depreciate or re-reduce ang value ng mga bagay na yon, yun yung single, pagiging single nung nature niya. Pwede ding purchases of material. Halimbawa, para pag pumili ka ng mga materials mo, instead of writing or encoding isa-isa, halimbawa, nagpa-manufacture ka ng susi, bumili ka ng bakal, bumili ka ng liha, bumili ka ng kung ano-ano. Instead of writing it individually, ginagawa na lang natin siyang as one, purchase of material. Same with transport cost, employees benefits, and advertising cost. Kaya siya tinawag na nature nung expense method or expense in general. Now, yung second way of writing an expense is the function on expense method. Ibig sabihin, expense are classified and presented according to their function as part of sales or, for example, the cost of distribution or administrative activities. Kaya ito ay madalas ginagamit sa merchandising and manufacturing business. Because at a minimum, an entity discloses its cost of sales under this method separately from other expenses. Ibig sabihin, matatansya mo, saan ka ba maraming expense? Sa cost ba ng product? Sa pagbuo ng product? Or baka mas malaki yung nagiging expense ng administrative mo, mas magastos pala sila. Kaya nagkakaroon ng function of on expense method. Ibig sabihin, ano si function ni expense? Sinong gumamit sa kanya? So, yung example, I will show you later. For now, there's a type of comprehensive income that shows expenses by their function is referred to as prepared using a multi-step approach. So, yung kanina, nature of expense is a single-step approach kasi based sa nature. Ngayon, ang function of expense is referred as multi-step approach kasi paghihiwalayin mo ang gastos ni administrative at gastos ni cost or the sales. So, ito yung mga major categories kapag gumagamit tayo ng function of expense method. So, ang makikita mo sa expenses instead of salaries expense, and so on, depreciation expense, and so on, ang makikita natin is cost of sales or cost of goods sold. Pag marami, it's note 1. Distribution of cost or selling expenses, pwedeng note 2. Administrative expense, the general and administrative expense, pwedeng note 3. The other expenses, the interest expense, if meron, income tax expense, if meron. So, kapag present ka using function of expense method, tandaan, mas maiksi siya compare sa nature of expense method at mas maraming notes si function of expense compare kay nature of expense. Kasi kay nature of expense, pwedeng net purchases lang, inventory, and cost of goods sold lang yung may notes. Pero kapag function of expense, automatic, itong 6, pwede na lahat tong magkaroon ng notes, isa-isa. So, distribution cost or selling expense. Ito yan. Yan yung number 2. This is a cost attribute to selling activities. Ang makikita natin dito is freight out or delivery expenses. Sales commission. Sales commission, hindi ikaw yung empleyado. Bawa, commission-based ka. Halimbawa, pag nakabenta si Juan ng 3 sasakyan, may commission siyang 500,000. Expense yun ni business. Next, we have advertising. Di ba, para makabenta ka, kailangan mag-advertise sa TV. Expense yun. Salaries ng mga personnel, expense yun. Depreciation ng ng gamit sa opisina, on delivery equipment, rent pertaining to the space occupied by the sales department, and the like. Yan yung ginagamit for distribution cost. Next, pagdating sa administrative expense, ito yung portion na ang mga gumagamit is mga office workers. So, kung yung nauna, yun yung sa factory or sa manufacturing site, ito naman administrative expense, because administrative expense is a residual category of expense. They are expense that does not qualify for clarification under the other categories is included in this category. Bawa, hindi siya pwede sa cost of sale, hindi siya pwede sa distribution cost, hindi siya pwede sa other expense and interest expense. So, ito yung mga gastos ng admin. So, ang kasama dito sa gastos ng admin is si insurance. Ang ini-insured ko ay yung mga gamit sa factory. Pero ang gumagawa nun is si admin. Di ba lahat ng papers nun? Si admin. Tax and license. Trabaho ni admin. Except income tax expense. Gumagawa yan, BIR. Salaries ng non-sales personnel. Ibig sabihin, salaries ng mga tagagawa ng paper. Depreciation of asset not used by the sales department, and rent pertaining to the office space, and then like. So, yun yung dalawang pinaghahatian nila. The distribution and the administrative expense. The other expenses includes losses like casualty losses and losses on sale of property. Bawa, dito muna tayo sa sales of property. Bumili ka ng building, binili mo siya 1.5 million. Medyo luma na si building, nabenta mo 100,000. Nalugi ka ng 1.4 million. Saan mo ilalagay yon? Other expense. Halimbawa, may empleyado on duty na nabagsakan ng TV sa ulo, pina-ospital. Casualty, other expense yun kasi hindi naman siya kailangan para sa business pero kailangan mong tulungan kaya siya nasa other expenses. So maraming pwedeng under dito ng casualty losses. Or pwede rin nag-invest ka kahit hindi siya part ng business pero nalugi, casualty losses pa rin ni business. Income tax. Income tax includes taxes on income. Other taxes are presented in administrative expense category under the taxes and licenses account. So, income tax expense. So, kung magkakita mo, merong tax kang dapat bayaran. Kasi ito ay different sa taxes and licenses. Yung licenses to operate yan eh. Itong income tax kaya siya nakaiwalay kasi sa dulo ng taon, upon presenting mo lang siya nilalagay. Doon ka lang nagkakaroon ng income tax expense. Kasi 'di ba, kailan mo malalaman ng income mo? Hindi sa dulo lang. So, hindi mo siya basta-basta mailalagay sa journal ledger and so on. Kaya nakaiwalay si income tax expense. So, kapag function of expense, ito yung example. We have cost of goods sold, insurance expense, advertising expense, freight out, loss on sale of equipment. We have rent expense. 1/2 pertains to the sales department. Ibig sabihin, 60,000, mahati na agad yan. Si 60K, ayan, si 60K kay distribution cost, si 60K administrative expense. So, may kita mo sa notes si rent expense ng 2 beses together with salaries expense. 1/4 pertains to the non-sale personnel. Ibig sabihin, out of 200,000, yung 150,000 is for distribution, yung 1/4 is 50K, ito yung sa admin. Tapos, ika-categorize na natin the rest of the expenses. So, kapag hinati natin yan, ito yung magkakasama. So, you're going to determine, so, advertising expenses sa selling or sa distribution cost, si freight out sa distribution cost or yung delivery charge. Ito yung kanina, rent expense, kalahati ng 120,000 is 60,000. 3/4 ng salaries, which is 150,000. Sales commission expense, marami nakabenta kasi naka 20,000. So, ang total selling expense mo is 284,000. While, pagdating doon sa number 3, administrative expense, ang makikita mo, ito si insurance. Yung kalahati ng rent expense, di ba? So, pag pinagsama mo yung dalawang rent expense, babalik ka pa rin doon sa 120,000. Si salaries, babalik ka rin sa 200,000 kasi 150 and then 50. Si bad debt ay part ni administrative expense. So, ang total administrative expense is 236,000 pesos. So huwag natin ipagtaka bakit si bad debt ay classified as an administrative expense. Kasi hindi mo naman kasalanan na may mga utang. Pero kasalanan ni admin kapag mas maraming bad debt or yung hindi mo masingil-singil. Kasi sila yung gumagawa ng policy. Nagkakaroon sila ng poor credit policies or decisions na pwedeng mas marami yung umuutang kaysa nagbabayad. Baka hindi masyadong mahigpit si company. And then, cost of goods sold is presented separately. Alam nyo na to, cost of goods sold sa inventory. Loss on sale of equipment is under other expenses. So, kapag medyo nalugi na onte, nagbenta, other expenses din yon. Interest expense is presented separately. So, I will be showing you the totality using the first in revenue, gains, and total income of ABC Corporation I have presented a while ago.